All right, welcome to ChalkTalkAcademy.com question and answer session from this past Sunday. We chose a spread offense. We start Sunday nights, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This thing went to about midnight, had some good topics, and we're going to continue to do this thing on Sunday nights as we continue to go into the off season. We're going to share some good ideas from coaches across the country. So hope you enjoy what you see. Okay, first question number one, 3x1 with a tight end opposite versus 4-3 defense. Had a lot of coaches interact here on Twitter about their thoughts with this and running this formation. This is a formation that we use. This came from a coach out of Texas that was interested in seeing what coaches would want to package with this formation versus this front. So I think a lot of the interaction that we talked about, first things first, you look at the perimeter. And you look at offense has 3 guys, they've got 2 guys, so you got to find a way to attack the perimeter. So as we look at this and talking about some of the advantages and some package plays as we move forward, just some of our thoughts here. I think first thing first, you got the bubble right off the bat, right there, because you've got good numbers and the ability to throw the bubble and get it to the perimeter, to the outside. And in terms of packaging a play, you could package the inside zone with the bubble, running the inside zone right here. We're running it to the right. What we would have here with our mate calls, we'd have these 2 guys for those 2, these 2 for those 2. We would displace that guy. This guy would now climb up for Will, and we'd read the end. So it would look like this. There's our displace block. This guy's going to step to his play side gap, step, see how this guy reacts down, and might end up right there. So what we talk about with the inside zone here is our back is going to try and press to this B gap, cutting it back to the A gap, cutting it back to the A gap. We run the inside zone as a cutback play. So what we have here with our mate blocks, be tackle and tight end. For those 2, we would call that a toe. Center and guard, for those 2, a cog. And then this would be our displacement block, displacing this guy from this A gap to that A gap. Tailback's going to press at the B gap. Here's our mesh point. Quarterback's eyes are on this end. So if he goes up the field, it's going to be a give. And as he's pressing at this B gap's covered. It's going to look to come back to the A gap. We're displacing this to the A gap. This path crossing the midpoint of the center causes the flow of the linebackers to cross the center. And as this guy presses at the B gap here, B gap's covered, cutting back to the A gap, and this thing can come all the way back right there. So we're running the inside zone. That's the first thing we thought about in terms of package plays. Inside zone with the bubble. You're right there. Running the bubble, reading this guy. This guy wants to collapse on the run. Quarterback's now going to pull it and throw the bubble. Just some things on the perimeter real quick. If you want to change it up, if this guy's a little bit wider, you could crack block that. That way you've got good leverage, and you've got a lead blocker with good leverage out there. Just a little bit of a different variation on the perimeter. Next thing we talked about in terms of package plays, still talking about running the inside zone and just something a little bit different. Running the inside zone like we did on the last play. Now what we would do, we change it up here. We'd block out. Now we're going to read this guy, and we're going to put this guy right in that spot right there, and might follow this guy on an in route and have this guy run a takeoff here. So, we're going to run the displace here, climb for Mike, base that, step play side gap, climb for Sam, step to that 9 technique right there. Back's going to do everything, run towards that B gap, cutting it back to the A, cutting it back to the A. Now the quarterback's eyes are on this guy. So if you get this guy running, we're going to throw it to the vacated spot. So it's just a little bit of a run pass option. A couple more options here. We're going to talk about, we talked about attacking this perimeter because they are deficient numbers on the perimeter. So we're running the inside zone and the read bubble. Obviously now this team might start seeing the bubble, and you've got to have some variation. So we talked about running the read bubble with the possibility of the X stutter and go, getting into the X on the perimeter, and then a couple other variations might be the bubble here. This guy now wants to run hard here and just put this guy in a little seam area right there. This guy's still in the box, committed to the run. And I think the way the defense might adjust would be moving this free safety over. So there's a couple more bubble variations there for you with this. Next play, we're going to talk about the quarterback power read. So we move the back over here, right there, and we're going to end up reading this front side end right there. So disregard that back right there. We've just moved the tailback over in that position. Read power, we've talked about this before on this site. where you're just going to run power football. So here's your double team back to a backside backer, up to Mike, stepping back on that tackle, pulling up for Will, got a little gap seal funnel here for that backside. You're going to scream this tailback across the quarterback. He's going to slide 2 steps, read in the end. If he gets wide, tailback's going to continue in that direction. Quarterback's up there with a nice downhill run. Screaming the tailback across that quarterback's face. N wants to crash or N wants to slow play it. Give it to the tailback. Now you've got a good perimeter sweep even here with an extra blocker on the perimeter. Or this guy could even spy for the will. So that's the quarterback power read sweep. I think one of the key coaching points here in the ball handling is if the quarterback's heels are at 5, you want the tailback is just ahead of the quarterback and he wants to scream across at that 5-yard mark and maintain that distance of 5 yards and be ready to bubble around. Going to show you a nice play action off the quarterback read power. Whether you want to pull the guard into protection or not, it doesn't matter. But we'll show you with it pulling, but you could use a full slide or a reaching gap protection with this. So again, we'll put the tailback over here. And now we're attacking this area with the play action here. So we want to try and capture the eyes of that defender right there. So what we're going to get here is we're going to have this guy run a bounce route. This guy's going to try and place himself behind that strong safety in that window 9 to 15 yards. All this action here should hold this will. There's enough width with the Z from the free safety. So here's a nice little play action. What we would do here, we'd run number 1 on a go. So with this protection, everybody's going to step down into their gap. This guy's going to step back into his gap, knowing that the guard is pulling. Here, we'll gap seal funnel that one. So on the front side, everything looks like power. We're going to pull this guy, and he's going to kick out this end. We're going to scream this back across, put the ball in there, step back, and we're reading this defender. All this action right here should hold the strong safety. If he reads it as a pass and gets any bit of depth, the ball can go here. If he collapses down in here, as he should with this play action, if you're making this play go, there's going to be a nice crease right there for that. So that's a nice play action off of that. So that came from a coach in Houston, Texas. Another one we're going to share here, just a sprint out flood concept here to the trip side. So you got a front side gap reaching protection, sprinting out on the back side. We use what's called a fallen wall, and that's how the coach had drawn it up. You've got the tailback coming here to reach that C gap. Quarterback's moving the pocket. Now, with most sprint out concepts versus this structure, you're really reading one guy. So on this particular play, we had a takeoff. We had a 10-yard out. And we had a 3-yard out. So it's just a flood concept, and you're reading this guy. This guy gets width and drives down here. You're going to throw it to the 10-yard out. This guy gets depth. You're going to throw it here to the shorter out there. So it's a simple little sprint out flood play. One more run play we're going to show you here, and it's going to be a quarterback counter. So it's a quarterback designed run play. We're going to end up attacking this area right here, but we're going to have the tailback cross the quarterback as if it's inside zone, and that's going to have effect on these linebackers. So what you're going to have here for your backside tackle, his rule is he can leave 2. He's going to climb and end up getting Mike. This guy's going to block down. Now, traditional counter, you pull tackle and guard. Here, we're going to pull our center and our tackle. So now right here, we're going to pull our center for the kick out here on the end. We're going to pull our tackle, and he's going to be the wrapping player right there. Our backside guard is just going to step back there. This guy's going to really gap seal funnel. This action right here should hold Sam. Good meshing action there. And now there's a nice little run play right there. If you get this guy here trying to bend and spill it, the center's got to recognize that and log it. Then you'll get your tackle to come out here, and then it's going to end up bouncing to the perimeter. And again, you still got good numbers here. However, you decide to block it on the perimeter versus if this guy's wider than number 3, you could do that. You could run the Z for free safety. So there's another little variation of blocking on the perimeter. You know, as the discussion went on, we had some coaches chime in as to how they want to defend it. I thought there were some good answers from a defensive standpoint, so we're going to share a couple of those out of this defense right here. Similar structure to what we had drawn up. So what this coach had drawn up, he's going to lock that right there. He's going to treat it as really a 2x2 or a 2x1 formation. He's eliminating the X with their best athlete. This guy's going to end up playing a cloud technique, playing half right there, probably going to play on the edge of the box. This will be a curl dropper right there. And then you've got your answers right there. So this guy's going to try and reroute, treating him as if he's number 1. Here's number 2. They're eliminating that guy right there. So there's a good little look. And they've got this little stump right here. So, you know, some of the, you know, obviously we could draw up some answers to that, but I thought that was a good adjustment, and hopefully there's some ideas there when you're playing some of these 3x1 teams that you might want to eliminate and treat it as a 2x2 formation or a 2x1 formation by eliminating one of their players with your best athlete on the perimeter covering number 1. Here's a look at it from a defensive perspective, from the defensive guys' view here. So they've eliminated number 1, so now they made this the new number 1. There's number 2. This really becomes the corner, playing what we would call a cloud or a reroute technique. We've eliminated this guy. This guy's locked on number 1. Put your best athlete out there on number 1. This will be your curl dropper. This will be a half the field defender, and then there's a stunt right there. And then they've inserted this corner in there inside of that right there. So this guy's going to end up being the 7 technique player. This guy will be the D-gap player. Another answer on defense coming from a 4-2-5 defense, split coverage. So what you've got here is similar to what we did with the last one here. We've eliminated number 1 right there with man coverage. So now this guy's going to play like the corner. So he's either going to play a quarter technique or he could play a cloud technique. But in this picture here, we'll play him as a quarter technique. So he's going to drop to a quarter just inside of that outside corner. This guy is going to be a 2-to-1 pattern reading player. So now we've said that this is number 2. And this is the new number 1 because we've eliminated that guy right there. So it's a split coverage. They still got their 6 in the box. They've got a good leverage defender right there. And now this corner is going to play half, and he's going to line up at 8 to 9 yards. So this guy would end up being a middle hook curl dropper right here. This guy's going to pattern read 2-to-1. Depending on, you know, if 2 goes vertical, he'll lock. If 2 vacates, he'll rob 1. If 2 crosses, the will try and pick that up, and he'll go to 1. So it's a quarters coverage here. So that's another variation from a coach from Texas, I believe, and another coach from Florida chimed in on this with the 4-2-5 defense, split coverage, and defending this formation. Still looking at this 3x1 formation with this. You know, we talked about how we package a play versus this perimeter look, and depending how a team might adjust. And we looked at some different ways through some different defensive guys' perspectives. But you know, we've run in the inside zone. We've packaged it with the bubble. Another play that we'd like to run is what we would call the tackle wrap or the dart play. And we'd love to run at the shade. So if we saw this 4-3 defense, we would cross the back here. And his job is going to be to replace that offensive tackle that we're going to pull. So here on the front side of the play, we're going to take an oversplit here by our offensive tackle. We're going to base this defensive end and drive him out. Here we've got a front side double team to a Mike. So we've got this double team to a Mike. We're going to step back here with the guard. We're going to tackle wrap for Will versus this front right here. We're bringing this back across to replace the tackle versus this front here with a wide 9. We teach our tight end to run for Sam, and that this guy is going to get caught up in the mess, and it's going to end up being blocked by our tailback. So it looks like zone read to the linebackers. Most defenses are going to read guards, so they're not going to think about that tackle. Got this mesh point here. We're going to carry out the mesh, and we're going to run it up in here. Same thing, some of the issues there at the point of attack. Might be some games here where you get this defensive end spiking here, bringing the will out there. For us, that's not a problem. We still got this good double team right there. This tackle, as he steps, he's now got to redirect and wash that down in that direction. As this tackle pulls, you know, if we see a pre-snap, we would have a call. We'd call it rifle, 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 and that alerts that tackle that we might be getting an end spiking B gap and a C gap blitzer. Now this guy's going to pull and kick that out. So that's one adjustment there. So, you know, we've talked about this formation, packaging the inside zone and the bubble. Another nice run play that we have on a one back versus this front that we really like would be running the tackle wrap. Another play, 3-by-1 tight end opposite, running the speed option. You know, I think as a general rule, you talk to your offensive tackle, he's got to try and seal the front. I think versus this, if you knew you were going to see this front and until they adjusted, you'd come up with a call between the H and the tackle. And what you do here is you crack the front right there. Got a nice perimeter outside block there. Perimeter outside block there. This is going to be our speed option guy right here. So everyone's just going to step down, seal the front, gap seal, gap seal, gap seal. Now you're running speed option off of that. So it's a good front to run that little speed option play off of right there, and you get a nice crack. You got good leverage with the H back, with the H player right there.